Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Hand of Fate. I'm Nye.
I'm Mako. We're still in our previous run, which is, I think, the first time we've actually had to do that.
Yeah, this is a first for the series, which is that we are starting an episode on a run from a previous episode. Which, I'll be honest, it's not something I really want to do, but given how long it takes to upload these supremely long runs, I think it is a necessity. So, I do apologize for those of you who have gotten accustomed to the hour-and-a-half long Nye runs in the morning. Because I know there are some of you who I'm apparently the first thing you do in the morning, and if you are, I feel for your sanity. But, yeah, we can't do that, guys. We're talking about 12 gigabyte files that take 2 days to upload. My ISP is pissed.
I start losing it after a while as well,
Yeah.
so...
Breaking these up gives us a chance to relax, to get our bearings straight, go to the bathroom or something as need be. So we need this. Mako, we were talking a little bit earlier about games we played as a kid. How much... Oops, I don't want to hit go. Don't want to get by that. How much N64 did you play?
I owned one, so a reasonable amount. Not a ton, but I played a lot of fun ones that I found were quite fun, so...
Did you ever play a game called Iggy's Wrecking Balls?
No, I can safely say I have not played that, no.
I can't remember if I've talked about this game in any of the episodes, but I have over 2,500 episodes on my channel, so if I start to repeat stories, you're going to have to forgive me. So Iggy's Wrecking Balls...
Grateful for that.
I'm trying to think what the best way to describe it, and what the best way I can describe it is as a racer. Like a 2D side-scrolling racing game. The idea was that, now keep in mind, 2D on a 3D plane, so you were, okay, we do have casters to deal with. You were 2D, but the actual, like, racetrack you're on exists on a 3D plane, so it would shift and change with you. And the idea was that you, as Iggy, and all of your friends were basically anthropomorphic wrecking balls.
Iggy's Wrecking Balls, okay, sorry.
Iggy's Wrecking Balls.
I was thinking, like, you were saying that, I was thinking... you were describing it, and I didn't hear the name that well, so...
Yeah, so Iggy's Wrecking Balls. So the idea was that you were a ball that ran around, but the big thing... No. The big thing was that you had a hook that you could use, as well as weapons. And, I'm about to die. You had a hook as well as weapons, and the hook you could use to transition, transition vertical levels on the race that you're in. So you might have like a stack of levels 5 tall, and you would do the typical drop thing, like you drop between levels like you can in any platformer. But you could also go back up and vice versa, and you'd be doing this rapidly to do the race. And it would be a race against other players, but they would typically be on another track entirely. Even though you're both running the exact same race, they're running a slightly different track than you are. And occasionally, so there was the race portion of the game, but there was also a multiplayer versus portion, very Mario Kart style versus type thing. So you'd have your 3D racetrack, but it would loop around, so you'd be able to, come right back to where you started. And you'd have weapons to fire at each other in order to, mess with each other, and whoever had the most life at the end wins. It was a very weird game, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, mostly because of the stupid joke I made to my friend one day. So there was a bunch of different unlockable characters, and keep in mind, I had rented this game from Blockbuster, so most of the characters were unlocked. And the level we were on was this weird level, and I loved it for one reason. So, I want you to picture a, kind of a racetrack that from above is just an oval, okay? Now, at the semicircular ends of the oval are, is a stack of like 5 levels. It looks kind of like a set of pancakes, and you can jump, up and down these levels. On the long arms of the oval, so you're gonna have to picture the shape in your head. It's kind of weird. So, from looking down at the oval, I want you to picture rotating it on its side until you're looking to the side of the oval. Okay? Remember, it's a 3D shape. And on the side, you learn that the oval is made not of one oval, but of 2 ovals. On one side of the oval is high, the other side of the oval is low, and they crisscross. So from the side, it looks like an X.
Huh.
Make sense?
Yeah, I'm just... I'm trying to draw the idea in my head here.
Yeah, it's a really simple layout, but trying to describe it is really difficult. So the only reason I liked this level was that there was a character that was literally the sun. That's all it was. And there was a special move you could do that was a boost, which would make you move extraordinarily fast. And it was possible, with this boost, to be at the top level of one side of this arena and take a leap off the downwards ramp and completely hit the other side of the arena. Otherwise, it was extremely impossible. You'd never make it. High Priestess, I don't believe we have enough blessings for.
I do not think you have what it
So I was playing as the sun, and the idea was that you had to hit each other with weapons. And I want to say there's stuff like flamethrowers and stuff like that. Like a lot of just weird weapons that were kind of getting close, shoot rockets, things like that. I want to say there were rockets that you could fire that would travel around the track. So the fact the track was like circular like that would actually come to your advantage. So what I would do is in games like this, I was always a better runner than I was a fighter. So I would be the sun, and I would use this boost, and then I would tell my friend that I am the rising and setting sun, and make that jump. Just jump completely over, and it would look like the sun was literally rising and then setting over the background. The only reason I liked the game, and the only reason I liked that map, the only reason I liked that character was because I could make that joke. Eventually, my friend got so pissed off that I made this joke so often, they told me we weren't playing the game anymore. Just because of that. And keep in mind, there's not a tremendous amount of things that were incredibly noteworthy about this game, like incredibly amazing about the game. It was mildly enjoyable.
Blessings are too good.
So, not being able to play the game anymore, this was not this amazing, like, sacrifice I made. The game was mildly okay. But it still holds a special place in my heart. So when I went a couple of years ago to a local gaming store that sells like old retro games, and made a point of picking up a copy of Ricky's Wrecking Balls when I bought another N64. I've never played it. It's still sitting with the N64 in a drawer because I've never played the N64 either. But it was remarkably enjoyable. Let's see, there was also I never got a chance to play it. I own it. At the same day that I went to grab a copy of Iggy's Wrecking Balls, I also bought a copy of Mischief Makers.
Oh god, I know Mischief Makers.
So I've never had a chance to play it. I've always wanted to. It is sitting behind me. It's less than 10 feet from me right now. And I just loved the sight of it the first time I got a chance to see it. And was fascinated and never got a chance to play it. Really fun to look at game.
So Mischief Makers is undoubtedly one of the best games for the N64. One of the old greats of the set.
I agree with that. And then the other one, this one, if I only had friends to play it with that were down here, this would be probably like the #1 party game for me. Bomberman 64.
I vaguely remember that one.
So one of the things I loved in Bomberman 64 was that it wasn't old school Bomberman. Because I also played old school Bomberman. That was one of those old Game Boy games that I had. I also had some in that. You remember that 1001 Games knockoff I told you about?
Mm-hmm.
One of the knockoffs was a knockoff Bomberman.
Ah,
Like
yes.
old school, but it was also like half RPG as well. Like you got upgrades to your bombs that you would use to like go and unlock like a swamp or something. I don't remember the full details. Bomberman 64 I liked because you would run around these big 3D levels, and you would get woohoo! I got a single coin. You'd run around these big 3D levels, and you'd get bomb power-ups, but they'd be more interesting than the old school Bomberman power-ups because of the 3D space. So when you got the cherry bomb, the super mega bomb, it was more interesting because it would also reach like up and down, and oh, that was a mistake. Hold on, I even sell something. Mace. Nice. Let's also get rid of the immovable object. Damn it, I've sold someone else. Sell the blood crest. The master ring is here, if you're curious why I'm selling stuff.
You think that will
Okay.
help?
I feel better now. But yeah, you like the upgrades that you would get would mean a lot more because they were in a 3D space. The thing I remember most, though, the thing I loved the most was Ghost Mode. Mako, did you ever deal with Ghost Mode in Bomberman 64?
More
No.
than anything,
So,
I am proud of my
Ghost Mode is a special setting you have to turn on for multiplayer, specifically. Do I want the Battle Hammer? We'll use the Battle Hammer.
As pleases you.
And the way it worked is that when you died, you would turn into a ghost. And there were, if I remember correctly, there were two different ghost modes. One was ghost mode off. And I believe this one said that you would ride the outside edge of the map. And,
Ooh.
Okay, lose 10 max health. Lose 15 max health. Lose 15 health. You would be on the outside edge of the map, and you'd be able to throw bombs into the map. And just harass the other players with them.
A choice.
The other
Select your
one
desire.
is Ghost Rider mode. I can't remember the name of it. But the way this one worked is that you, as a ghost, couldn't throw bombs, but you were a physical presence on the battlefield. And,
I'm sure
ooh,
you're
I get
grateful
Hermes
for that.
antlers. You were a physical presence on the battlefield. And if you were able to jump onto another player, you were then able, what do we got? Wandering Minstrels. We're going to go do Wandering Minstrels real quick. If you were able to jump onto another player,
away.
you would then
See
be
what you will
able
find.
to control that player for a short period of time. Now, you wouldn't gain anything out of this. It would end the game faster, and that would be about it. We're going to go ahead and request food, and we'll offer them half my gold. Okay, that's not too bad. What do these guys want? But you could force other players... I don't have any food. I wish I had some food for you. You could force other players to kill themselves and thus end the round earlier.
Nothing more
You could
pleasing
rob
than
someone of a
sort
victory,
of
which
rush
I think it was like first to X amount of wins. So you could rob someone of a victory and, thus progress the game.
That is one of my favorites.
Well, I was going to say, remember, screwing over your opponent in a Bomberman game is a
This
long-standing
can only end
tradition.
one way.
So that just killed me.
Oh,
Like, that's really annoying. I lose. Unless this gives me food.
da, da, da.
That was the blighted rings that killed me.
Ah,
Also, the negative
Too
max
little,
health
too
from
late. Starvation takes its toll.
from that treasure chest. But we did get a token. So this is from the Demon Trader. Demon Trader 6 gave us gain 40 gold, and the Ring of Fulfillment.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna go do a quickie and see if we can get ourselves a token off of story mode. I also remember that the game would get terrifying every once in a while.
The queen is elegant and deadly.
Specifically because High Priestess and Charity are the only two I have to worry about now.
Hmm.
So we need lots of food and blessings. I don't think there's any way I can get that many blessings or food, though. So actually,
Wait,
in that
I
case...
was going to say, do me a favor. Check the Ghost of the Sea for a moment.
Okay.
You have to put 2 more encounters in it anyway.
Goes to the sea.
Sorry, I was trying to work out, like, how many tokens you've got to have left overall.
It's very hard to say. Mostly because she doesn't have a token. The only 2 tokens I have left right now are Charity 6 and High Priestess.
Hmm.
That's it. Charity 6 is just I need to have 30 or more food. I think it's 31 plus. High Priestess requires that I have a lot of blessings. It looks like those must be the last couple of tokens, because you'll notice that we have almost everything unlocked in the unlocked column. On items, we're pretty close. So we're just going to have to... I guess we're just going to have to start up a endless mode again, because there's no way we're going to be able to get those sort of things without endless. I'm not really a fan of doing rolling endless modes like this, but I don't really have much of a choice. I think the other thing that made Bomberman 64 interesting was the terrifying idea of tiebreakers.
It has finally come.
No, it wasn't called tiebreakers. What was it called?
I am tired. It has been too long.
Okay, that's helpful. Started with the Skeleton King's Helm this time.
Life will not let the candle be snuffed.
Well, if I remember correctly, it was just called a
I want
hurry
to
up.
know what lies
And the idea was if you
behind
took
the
too long on a single map to beat your opponent, the map would take things into its own hands to kill one of you. So on certain maps, it might just start dropping bombs from the sky to see who it can hit and who the map can kill for you. On another map, it might cause the water to rise rapidly, and whoever gets caught underneath the water dies. I believe those were the majority of the hurry-ups like that. I think some of the maps also might have grew smaller to cause you to be closer and not so easy for you to dodge bombs. But it was a very just like interesting way for the game to try to encourage you to actually beat your opponent and not just dance around all the time. And keep in mind, this was on top of a rather successful 3D platformer Bomberman, which is pretty awesome, actually. I don't think I got too far in the main storyline when I tried it, but that game took a lot of hours out of us. There was also Perfect Dark, but we were terrible at it. We were. I would love to say we were good at Perfect Dark. We loved... I forget how we eventually got there, because it wasn't either of us. But we loved the fact that most of the weapons were unlocked by the time we got to the game. Because I think one of our friends of friends beat the game for us, something like that, and got all the weapons. So we had all the weapons, so we would just go into multiplayer mode, turn on as many bots as we could, and see how many we could take out. It would be the 2 of us against the world. And we got pretty good. And I think you could have, I think it was 8 other bots around, so you could have a surprising amount of bots going on. Unfortunately, the Xbox 360 remake didn't keep that up. I'm gonna skip the maiden.
I'm reminded
One cannot hope to find
some of the games I have a copy of Donkey Kong 64 sitting around here somewhere.
So do I. I was terrible at it.
Complete with the Rumble Pack or the special expansion pack thing.
Yeah, Rumble Pack was a Star
No,
Fox.
I meant the expansion pack. Yeah. Do you know the story behind that? Why they gave it out with all the
I refused to
copies
play
of
something
DK64?
Because it couldn't be played otherwise.
Yeah, there was a bug, and they
you
never
will
worked out
be
why.
defeated.
All they knew was that it needed the extra RAM.
Yep.
Or at least that's the way the story goes.
Well, I've seen speed runs of DK64. I can tell you that was not the only bug.
Oh yeah, there was plenty. A game I played I didn't like. In fact, I downright hated it, but I remember it. Ever hear Glover?
Everybody hates that game. That game is kind of universally not liked.
There's the Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie.
I played some Banjo-Kazooie 1 back in the day. Never got past Clanker's Cavern.
Man, you got lucky then. Some of the later levels just got more and more absurd. 2 is much better, also,
I'm sure
as you might expect. I have played Quest 64. I wish I haven't, but I have. It plays, but
trudging along a muddy road.
it did a handful. I tried to think of something good for about most things. It did a few things very well. It had some neat ideas.
I worked,
but
long
neat
and
ideas
hard
alone
to
will
make
not
that
save a game.
particularly painful.
Did I ever tell the story about Ogre Battle 64?
Don't think so. I've played the original, but not the 64.
So it wasn't too much of a thing, but at the time, okay, players' maximum health is increased by +1 max health per food. Interesting.
No, wait. The Ring of Fulfillment +1 max health per food. Now, is that food collected? Food?
I don't know. Let's
used?
find out. Per current food.
What
will also
will
buy
you do
that.
with
I literally bought out the shop. I don't think I've ever done that before.
Per food gained. Did you just see that?
I don't know if it's permanent. Because my max health was 70. Now I have 10 food. So yeah, it's current levels of food.
Okay.
Yeah.
A voyage across
Now,
the ocean.
at the time, for some reason, either my sister was the only one who had an N64, or I wasn't allowed to play mine, or something like that. I don't remember. I might have been grounded. I don't remember. We just lost the ring of killing streak.
I was left these
I don't remember the exact
From them,
details.
I
Hey,
built a
Charity
palace of
6, I'm so glad you allowed me time to get food before you came and said hi.
Few will ever reach the end of.
So yeah, I don't remember the details, but for some reason I wasn't allowed to play my N64. I wasn't able to. Now keep in mind, I do remember in the past there was a time where I was very, very ill, and I leaned over the side of my bed, threw up, and just so happened to throw up all over my N64.
Oh.
My dad tried to clean it, didn't work. He was a doctor, so vomit is the least of his what was the least of his worries. So yeah, so I guess I had rented or borrowed Ogre Battle 64 from someone, having no idea what the game was. And I was a youngin' at the time, so I never really figured out Ogre Battle 64 either. I got a decent ways into it, but never really, never beat it, never got amazingly far. I probably didn't even learn half the secret tech in the game. Just kind of played and smacked hit this person button. But the problem was that my sister at the time had a guinea pig. I had also had a guinea pig until we learned that I was allergic to them. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to a lot of different animals that I would love to have, including ferrets, guinea pigs, mice, various breeds of dog, cats. So I'm allergic to most animals, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I also don't work well with most anti-allergy meds, so I can't really solve it as much as I would love to. So, but she had the guinea pig, and I didn't have this amazingly good knowledge of exactly how allergies worked. So while I guess my parents were on vacation or something, so I was in my sister's room, sitting on her bed, playing her N64, watching her TV for something like 7 hours, or some extremely long time. And by the time I finished, my time with the guinea pig in the room had gotten me so sick, I could barely breathe. Like, it was so bad.
Choose from
And for some reason, and due to this, I really can, I can basically no longer play that game. Or at least I couldn't previously. Maybe I could now. I had a huge and terrible headache. I wasn't breathing well. I eventually just left the room and went to my room, and that was about it. But yeah, it was just a thing. It should go to show you guys, if you're a kid and you're grounded, do not try to bypass the grounding, or you will be unable to breathe. This is the story. This is the lesson you should learn from this. Had a lot of weird things happen playing games when I was a kid too. One of our... It took so long for me to convince my dad that we should have a personal computer at home. Like, keep in mind, it wasn't as if, everybody had personal computers by the time we got to this point. But this was, it was mid-1990s. My teachers were telling us that computers were the way of the future and that I should be learning how to type because I'd need to know it. And so it was like folly to me that we didn't have a computer at home. So I had to convince my dad. And eventually he acquiesced, and he's like, okay, we'll get a computer. So he bought a Gateway, which, back in the day, that was the coolest thing. Woohoo, we had a Gateway. It wasn't, dude, you're getting a Dell cool, but it was still cool. And I remember the Gateway came with 2 games on it. Sort of games. One was Myst, like the original. The other was this really weird music exploration pseudo game.
Are you sure?
Okay.
I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know if you were a producer of music or it was just exploring.
Total Distortion.
I have no idea.
All
I remember is that the game was very focused on Mini Driver.
Mini Driver.
Like the artist.
Oh, no, that's not it. You say music focus exploration.
Well, like, it was you were in like a loft apartment sort of thing, and you were wandering around, and you could listen to her music, and there was a music video and stuff like that.
A handful of artists had things like that back in the day, but that wasn't the one I was. You the way you were describing it, I was thinking if you had a copy of Total Distortion, I'm going to have to be envious now, but no.
Well, it was pre-built into the computer. I do not have a copy of whatever this was. But I remember that game I played a few times, and it wasn't as much a game as it was just like a quick little experience, and that was about it. I guess it was to kind of introduce you to the computer, maybe. Myst had more of my attention, as you might expect. The problem was that our video drivers didn't work. So, well, they didn't. There must have been some driver or something that didn't work correctly, because I could play the game just fine, but none of the video's files would work. So I couldn't see any of the events happening in the books. I could hear them, but I couldn't see them. There's a puzzle very early on where you go underground, and there's some sort of control center that you can adjust things on. I couldn't see what I was adjusting. So I couldn't play the game. I basically could not play the game because I could not do anything in the game to get the hints I needed to progress. So I've never beaten Myst to this day. Which is a crying shame, because I hear it's amazing, and I have probably 4 different versions of Myst on my computer, available to my computer right now. I have the Myst remastered. I have Real Myst. I forget what other versions Steam has that I've actually gotten over the years. Never played any of them.
I like puzzle games, but for some strange reason, Myst. I like the idea behind Myst, but I also know that it's exactly the kind of thing that would really annoy me.
I think one of the reasons why I really want to play Myst one day is actually due to a book I read. Many years ago, when I was a young kid, could not play games much because I was limited. I used to spend a long time at Barnes & Noble, and I had a very large book allowance. My parents were very ready to agree to me reading. Not because I didn't read, but because they understood that I was a voracious reader, and they want to be able to read anything I could get my hands on, which, believe me, I did. So what would end up happening is I prided myself for a long time in reading very thick books, because back in the day, you know, as a kid who was maybe, you know, 9, 10, 11, thereabouts, you know, everybody was reading those 100-page books, right? So if you were reading,
the kid who could read the really smart books, the really big books,
you were a big deal if you could do that. And so I always wanted to. And so one of the books I read, I believe I still have it on a shelf somewhere, is I think it's called The Book of Tiana. And it tells the story of what happened to the civilization in Myst. Like an entire story. I forget all the details. I don't know how canonical this actually is, but the entire story it happens before the cataclysmic events that destroy the civilization, and it's about a desert dweller woman who stumbles upon an underground passageway in the desert as she searches for, I think she's searching for water or something they sell in the market, something like that. Turns out this passageway is a made passageway. It's not a
natural one.
Yeah, it's not a cave like she thought. And she went in with cave spelunking equipment. Gets underground and eventually finds the civilization of, I think it's called Denis. Like
the D apostrophe N-I. Yes. This sounds like what was leading it to lead up for Uru.
Possibly. And she, if I remember correctly, she falls in love with Atrus, I believe his name, Atrus.
Atrus. I'm not up to snuff on the lore, so
she falls in love with him. They have a kid, even though there's supposed to be no way they're supposed to be able to. And, unfortunately, I forget what happens, but there's some political intrigue that basically happens. One guy is, I think, correctly accused of treason or something thereabouts. He gets exiled into a book of his own that's like a prison book. Like, it's a really nasty one.
Myst too.
So he gets exiled and eventually breaks his way out and uses this really nasty, like, super killed gas stuff that kills everybody. Like, it's like a gas that is also a communicable plague, something like that. So first he kills the underground cavern of the Denis civilization, and then they take the dead and force them into the books in order to kill everybody in the books too. Now, what I don't understand is, so Atrus ends up dying because he tried to leave and to save everybody, and basically ended up failing, from what I recall. His wife and their son were in a hidden book somewhere. He gets them out eventually, but he was infected, just not as badly as everybody else was. So he gets them out of the caves and then dies himself, and thus falls the civilization. And with that information, she and the son try to carry the history and knowledge of Denis out of the caverns with them, including, I want to say, like the bookmaking and the ink making and the writing, like knowledges, all of which are supposed to be like extremely sacred and secret and stuff like that, to try to, you know, restart the civilization. I remember as a kid, keep on, this was after like 5th grade when we had sex ed, going, wait, that doesn't work. How can they restart civilization? There's only 2 of them, and they're mother and son. Yep. That was the type of kid I was. Like, that was my thought at the end of this.
Your prowess.
I'm reminded, there's a game I've got here. I have a very few. It's a British sort of PC game that makes a very I don't know how to best describe it. Little Divil.
Not a freaking clue.
The idea was that there's this sort of underworld style place, and the whole idea is that every year or so they hold a big old big old straw drawing. The guy who pulls the short straw, has to be the one to go up to the surface to try and retrieve the mystical pizza of plenty.
Many
No
feel
anchovies.
death from a distance more than up close.
And unfortunately, Mutt, the main character, is the guy who drew the short straw this time. So your job is to sort of get him up to the different floors. And it was weird because it was a puzzle game, it was an action game, it was an RPG all at the same time. Most of the time you were looking over his shoulder as you were exploring this massive maze. Like, this was the sort of thing that you needed graph paper for.
I look forward to seeing how
And you had to explore the maze, finding different, sort of finding the traps and usually blundering into them, collecting gold, which you needed to buy stuff from the one shop on every floor, and then going into the different rooms, which would cause or create puzzles. Now the problem was that some of these puzzles were very clever, some of them were very, very buggy. For example, there's one where you have to get, if you don't have the item, you can't solve the puzzle, but you aren't necessarily told that. You have the standard sinking into the water platforms you have to jump across, collect water, and toss it into this fire
We're
breathing.
dead, by the way.
Nothing more pleasing than the smell of salt water.
Oh, that's
and
standard.
the rush of wind. Is there?
Fire breathing statue and all that, and
And
just get on with it.
yep, here we go.
Every
And
card
death.
drawn from your thoughts and your memories.
Well, you were down to
Every
29
card
max
tainted
health.
by
Really
your
wouldn't have helped.
view of the world. And your single
Wasn't much we could have done about that, unfortunately.
The same singularity of
Just ran out of
purpose
everything.
brings you here.
Okay, guys, we're gonna cut it here.
Thorns of hunger
Nothing interesting
pierce
happened there, but we did get our single token from the from that first run of the day, so that's always good. We'll catch you next time.